Hello, and welcome to the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. We are coming to you live on newstreamingnetwork.com, home of goingboldmedia.com, goingsolomedia.com, and WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am your co-host, Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host in peace, Miss
Kris Burke. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Before we get started, if you like the content that we're putting out and would like us to share it with the masses, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. In the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about how Peaceful Empowerment Works is also a nonprofit. So I want to thank everybody that's making donations and supporting us. And those of you that have not yet, if you feel so guided to support our mission, to stand alongside the passionate and committed individuals, parents, teachers, students, and community leaders who are the heart and soul of positive transformation in our society, that would be lovely, because we understand the challenges and immense responsibility that comes with being a change maker. Our goal is to empower you, like we've done through this show, with the tools, knowledge, and support necessary to facilitate impactful and lasting change in yourself, your family, your community, and this world. So if that's something that resonates with you and you can get on board with, hop on over to our website, peacefulempowermentworks.org, and hit that donation button.
Absolutely.
And today we are here for part 2 of our 3-part series, Making It Real. And we are going to discuss the fact that it's a marathon. How do you stay committed?
Yeah.
It's a big one. All of them are big ones.
I know. It's not like we really pick a lot of softball topics, right? We tend to go kind of deep. But yeah, it is a marathon. I mean, we were talking in prepping for the show. One of the things I said was I realized more and more how the marathon started, or at least the one I'm conscious of, started the day my toes hit the ground. It's been a lifelong journey, even though I wasn't aware of what was happening and how I was being guided to discover and develop and, dare to express my authentic self. I didn't know that. But now, in looking back, I can say, oh, yeah, there were hints of my authentic self. And oh, yeah, there was suffering because I didn't allow myself to be who I really was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it is a marathon.
Yeah, we were actually discussing and laughing about using the marathon word, because I have not run a marathon. Kris has run half a marathon. So we started talking about that whole process.
Oh, wait. I did not run half a marathon. I ran a half marathon.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Because I knew 26 miles was too much for me. But I didn't stop halfway through, which I came in last in my half marathon, right? I did. I came in last, but I finished.
So yeah, she ran a half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about, why we wanted to use this word in the title. And it just kind of came through. We didn't really think about it till we started prepping for the show. And Kris had a huge aha moment, because she realized that back when she was training for the marathon, she was using a technique that she wasn't even aware was a technique.
Yeah, it's so true. I would run for a long period of time, kind of get up to about 8 miles. Like I could run 8 miles comfortably. And then I would kind of either lose interest or winter would come, right? It's one of the things about living in a colder climate. Is like, I don't enjoy running in slush and rain and wind and all of those things, ice, all of those things. So I had stopped and started and stopped and started running many, many times. And when I decided to run the half marathon with my kids, who were then in college, or maybe graduated, but older, I started the day my daughter and I went out to start our training together. I was like, I don't want to start from zero again. I don't want to go back to the first half mile of huffing and puffing. I've done it a million times, been there, done that. I'm over it. So I had some experience, I guess. I'd learned from my life that if I could get my mindset right, if I could look at it right, then I would change the experience. And what popped into my head was this little mantra I started saying to myself, where am I here? What time is it now? What else is there? Nothing. And what is nothing? Everything. Right? Which could sound crazy. And at the time, I didn't really know what it meant, but it spoke to me. And it helped me to focus on the fact that we went out. Our first run was a 5-mile run. We did 4 miles of it on the first day that we ran. And we did it because I was running one step at a time.
Mhm.
This little mantra, which also kind of has a philosophical thing. So I'm a Sagittarius, right? So is Judy. And so we love, pondering philosophy and the possibilities and what's it all about and looking at it's just very interesting. So my mind was so focused on one step. I'm here, I'm now. Like this is what's happening. Nothing else is happening and nothing else is actually the potential for everything. Right? It was just this very full experience and yet in this present moment, very present. So I was able to just focus on running one step right here, right now, running one step, not hard, right? Running 5 miles in my head, which is my old approach, would have been to run the whole, just to imagine the route and run it and the hill. What's going to be hard? Am I going to be able to make it? What if I can't make the hill? Like the whole thing, I'd be worrying and frankly exhausting myself.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned the hill. My ex and I, when we first got together, we would run together all the time. And she was a Division I basketball player and all that kind of crazy stuff. So, she was in great shape. And we'd hit these hills and I'd be like, oh, fuck. And finally she looked at me and she was like, don't look at the whole hill. Just look at the step in front of you. That's all that matters. And then it gave me permission to A, look right in front of me, and B, not run that hill 50 times before I actually got to it.
Right. Right. And metaphorically, that's such a great example of what we do to ourselves, right?
Yes.
We anticipate, we run things through in our head in anticipation. And we do it so many times in advance that when it comes time to actually potentially do the thing, we're already over it. Even though we don't even know how it's going to go yet, we've convinced ourselves that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. My body was already exhausted by the time I got to that bottom of the hill because I've already run it 50 times in my head.
Exactly. Exactly. So no matter how tired you are, I found that there was no like huffing and puffing because I wasn't saying to myself, "Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my," I was just going, "Okay, I'm, one step, one step, one step."
Mm-hmm.
There's no one step that's so impossible if we can keep ourselves present. And that's very much what we talk about in zone 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe we could
Sitting
see
on
the
that
map.
observation deck and watching and observing without judgment. That's the biggest thing. Because as soon as you start judging, that puts you back in zone 2. It's really like you're collecting data.
Yeah.
So on this, how do you stay committed? You stay committed by reminding yourself of these things, the one step at a time. Let me get back up on the observation deck. It doesn't prevent you from feeling, but you're watching yourself move through.
Yeah. And no matter what's happened in your life up until this moment, and no matter what's coming, right? This moment, like being present in this moment, allows you to choose what kind of experience do I want to have right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do I want to feel great? I mean, do I want to focus on something that feels good, that's inspiring, that's heartwarming, that makes me laugh out loud? Or do I want to focus on replaying things that were over a long time ago that made me feel sad or angry or hurt? Right.
Yeah. And sitting on that observation deck, you see things like that. And then you feel like you're able to make a choice.
Right.
And I have found that when I am able to sit in that space, things are said by other people that are like, huh, I didn't even know I carried that belief, but I can choose to do that differently. And it sounds crazy, but we're in this class with Kris where we're talking, it's about body image and things like that. And she had made a comment, I don't know, months ago, probably maybe even a year ago, I don't know, where she said, why would I ever eat healthy food that did not taste good? And I grew up in a home with a mother that was very diet conscious and was eating all the latest diet food that tastes like cardboard, and it was awful. And the chicken was baked and the vegetables didn't have a lot of flavor because and she suffered through it. So when Kris said that, I was like, wait, what?
It's
Healthy
true.
food can taste good too? And it seems really stupid, but that was a conditioned thought, belief that I didn't even realize I had until Kris said something different.
Yeah. It's so true. People say it's very common too, because people say to me all the time, like, what do you eat? Like cardboard and tasteless things. Rabbit food is another popular one,
Hmm.
right? And I'm like, no, I eat great food that fuels my body. It makes me feel good, right? That tastes good. I mean, why would I eat something that doesn't taste good?
Right.
But if you have a belief that it either has to taste good or be good for you, well, now you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. Totally screwed.
Yeah. I mean, I
Because
can, yeah,
anything that I would eat that would taste good, I was convinced was not good for me.
right.
It didn't matter, what it was, but if it tasted really good, my body, my mind was saying, "Ooh, well, this can't be good for me because it tastes too good." And I would actually say that out loud.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because we it's part of that black and white thinking that happens in zone 1 and zone 2, right? Where the intellect it's just the way it's built. It's kind of going on off. It's kind of a binary thing. So it doesn't occur to it that you could explore how do I find the things that explore and experiment, which we talk about? How do I find the things which satisfy my taste buds, right? Which light me up, which make me feel really good, which are really nourishing. I mean, to literally sit down and say, what would my dream meal consist of? Like, what would that be? Well, I certainly it would taste good. It
Mm-hmm.
would be satisfying. I would feel great after. My body would be nourished. Like, we'd write these things down and then say, okay, I'm going to go find that. Right. So you write down your dream wish list and then you let that guide you. But if we don't do that, what we tend to do is to follow all of the kind of social myths that we have that get perpetuated by industries that are trying to market, solutions to problems,
Right.
right? Which is it's just the way our world works. So we start picking up the myth, like, oh wow, because they say, oh, you can eat this without giving up great taste,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you say, oh, must be I usually have to give up great taste to have something good for me, right? That's how we pick up these things.
Absolutely. And then when you look at the ingredients, it's nothing but a bunch of chemicals to provide that good taste that are
Yeah.
for your body.
Yeah. A friend of mine actually worked um, in a food, not a food plant, a food lab where they developed the chemicals that made like the flavor packets
Hmm.
that you would add to processed food that had pretty much no flavor. And you would add these flavor packets to it. They were just chemicals
Hmm.
to make the food set off the right receptors in the brain that said, "Ooh, good."
Yeah.
Right? That was
I
her
want
job.
more. I want more of this.
I want more of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're talking about food right now, but it's the same thing for life. What feels good to you? What lights you up? What works for you? Be it we rolled into that topic with Kris as well. If something isn't working for you, if there's conflict and resistance going in, I get up in the morning and I don't want to run. Okay, don't run.
Yeah.
And don't do the mind fucking beating yourself up because you didn't run.
Right. Right. Instead of saying, I judge you, self, as being bad because you're not willing to run, which I don't like to do, you say, okay, self, I want to support you in being happy and healthy.
Hmm.
So is running important to you? No, I don't want to run. Okay, well, what might you like to do?
Yeah.
What would you find enjoyable? Or maybe running first thing in the morning isn't fun, but maybe running at 2 o'clock in the afternoon would be heavenly if
Hmm.
you did it at a park with a friend, right?
Right.
It's like be experiment, explore. It's not running bad. It's I don't like to get up out of a cozy warm bed and go outside and face a run because my body finds that too startling. Now some people love doing that,
Hmm.
right? And so for them that's perfect. But I don't want to compare my experience to their experience because I'm living mine.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as you're comparing, you're down in that zone one, zone two.
Exactly.
Because, part of this marathon is learning over and over and over again that we are our own unique expression of love. And
Mhm.
what does that look like for you?
Right.
And we're all different and different things light us up. And that's the way it's been designed. We're not supposed to be cookie cutter because if
Mm.
everybody was the same, this human experience would be really dull.
It would be really dull. Yeah.
So how do you stay committed? You stay committed by um, being willing to continue experimenting and exploring, remembering the tools.
Yeah.
Um, and this is a big one. We were talking about this just before we went live. Kris was saying, you surround yourself with people, things, whether it be music, um, shows, whatever supports the vibration you desire. And if you're desiring love, joy, and happiness, you can't watch movies that are blowing up the world and cause stress and anxiety. I have
Right.
found through this, I used to be an avid watcher of Law and Order and crime shows like that. And it's just something that I can't engage in. That's for me. Other people, that lights them up because they love the mystery. They love all. But for me right now, that's not a place I can put myself.
Right.
You
And
know,
that's exactly the point, right? It's the are you doing it for the because conceptually, intellectually, the thing you're doing looks good when you compare it to what you think you should be doing, right? So it like follows the rules. Or are you doing it because it fulfills you, brings you joy, is satisfying, makes your experience richer? Because if we always focus on the experience, right, then it makes it natural to stick with it because you keep focusing on what makes my experience even better. What makes my experience even better? You're never going to stop doing that. I mean, once you find out it works
hmm
and your experience starts getting better and better, at what point are we going to say, oh, no, that's good enough. I'm just going to stop here? Not going to happen,
show
right?
me how good it can be.
Yes. And when you go through some sort of transition, right? If your kids leave home or you retire, whatever the transition is, you've got this mindset now that says, okay, retirement, what's my retirement going to be like? Or what's my empty nest experience going to be like? I know that I can explore and experiment and put together elements of a life that feel really fulfilling to me, really enjoyable. Not things maybe that I can go tell everybody, like, oh, guess what I did yesterday? Like, most people either won't care or if they're in a similar transition and they've not given themselves permission to explore and experiment, then they can actually be a little passive aggressive about you having the audacity to explore and experiment and find a life that you enjoy, not because they're bad, just because from their perspective, um, what do we say? Misery loves company.
Company. And it's interesting that you brought up, like a kid going off to college and retirement, because I just had a kid go off to college, and um, I've had, my father has retired and things like that, and other people retiring. And when a kid goes off to college, our society says it's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to be that empty nester and feel things. It was very interesting when my father retired. One of his biggest struggles was he didn't know what to do. And he almost went into a depression. And that society doesn't, you should be happy. You're retired. What the hell do you have to be depressed about?
Yeah.
So being able to be truthful and honest with yourself, first and foremost, yourself about where you are, and then having people in your life that you can share that truth with
Yeah.
is really,
Absolutely.
it's really important.
Yeah, that is so true. I know a lot of men who, when they retired, and family members, when they retired, became depressed.
Mhm.
Some of them went and got therapy, very hush hush.
Mhm.
And because, it's not something to go around telling people openly in our family circles. And then other people went back to work.
Yeah. My dad was joking about starting a support group, which I'm not real positive he hasn't, but he also went back to work. And
Mm.
oddly enough, he works at a retirement home as a host in their dining room.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and my father is older than most of the residents there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it's hilarious, but it lights him up. He it's something that he thoroughly enjoys and looks forward to. It's a part-time gig, and he's happy,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
there's the bell. That's where you ring the bell. That's it.
Yep.
Does it make you happy? Because happy is healthy,
Yep.
right? We get so confused about like, oh, I'm going to do all these really hard, miserable things to make myself healthy. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm doing all these things. Happiness, I mean, that's not what matters. It's not central to this life. But actually, what we find out in there's so much research and
Mhm.
in our own experiences is that happiness is the path to healthy.
Yes.
Because when you're happy, you're not in fight or flight. You're not in competing and trying to compare yourself to other people. You're not in your head,
Mm-mm.
right? Happy, you actually drop down into your heart and you start experiencing the world from that higher perspective.
Yes.
You're kinder and more self-respectful. You're feeling connected to the world and people around you. You're more generous, you're more compassionate, you're more joyful. There's peace of mind. And we
Yes.
know for a fact that stress is the leading contributor to disease, which is dis-ease, lack of ease, right?
Mhm.
Peace of mind is the opposite of lack of disease.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there's that rabbit hole that we fall into of what does happiness look like? Well, society tells us it should look like this,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a yellow
Social
circle with a smiley face on it.
social
Yeah.
media tells us it should look like this. And
Mhm.
that's a big thing I've learned through this journey is, happiness looks different to me. Happiness for me could be sitting quietly observing and
Mhm.
watching what's going on, especially around, I do that a lot at family functions. I do that here at the house with, since Jen moved in with Jen and Maddie. I love to sit where they don't know I am and listen to them, talk to one another and laugh because it just lights me up.
Mhm.
So that joy, I don't run out going, woohoo, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
allow myself to sit in that. Whereas before, I was thinking, well, that's not what joy looks like. Joy means, it's animated expression and it's this and it's that. Where, the first time I experienced peace, I was like, I'm so fucking bored. I'm
Right.
bored. And then I was like, wait, am I bored? No, I'm not bored at all. I'm very happy. Oh, wait, is this what peace feels like?
Mm. Yeah, contentment, when you're feeling content, what do they say? The wealthiest man in the world wants for nothing. And it could be person, right? Doesn't have to be
Hmm.
man. That was just the saying. Um, but it's true. When you're absolutely content, when you're satisfied, when your life lights you up and fills you up, and you can just sit and enjoy that, the fact that, yeah, my mind's not racing through worries. I'm not striving to prove something to somebody. I'm not beating myself up because I think I'm falling short, right? When we're actually just like, I'm here, I'm choosing this. This is fantastic.
Hmm.
And if I decide there's more that I want to bring into my life, and I focus on more because when we bring more in, like our brains and bodies will kind of naturally let go of what no longer fits,
Hmm.
right? We don't, there's all this stuff about, letting go and you're going to have to make room and all of this stuff. But actually, I have found if you just invite in more of the good stuff, the stuff that was never that really for you or isn't really for you anymore, will just, you're just know you're done
Hmm.
because you're going to be like I've got all these things on my plate and I can't have all of them going all of the time, and it becomes obvious to you like, oh yeah, this one needs to go, right? And it doesn't mean that it's always an easy thing, but if you're filling your plate up with things that you love, it doesn't have to be tragic either.
No, no. Happiness is a choice.
Mhm.
It really is. It's a choice. And the more you wake up and choose happiness, that becomes your autopilot.
Yes.
We talk about autopilot running on old patterns and blah 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 blah. There's some good patterns in there too,
Hmm.
and that's part of experimenting and exploring. That's part of what's working and what isn't working, because we have positive patterns that are and
Hmm.
serve us very well. We tend to in this world focus on all the negative. We get 25 beautiful comments of support and love, and that one that tears us down, we focus on that one. This is, I absolutely agree with Kris, and I may have shared this experiment I saw, where it's just a mason jar filled with dirt, and then another jar filled with water, and the dirt was like the lower vibrational slush that we have built up in our bodies, and the water represented love, joy, happiness. And
Hmm.
instead of a spoon digging out the dirt, you just took the water and poured it in with the dirt, and all of a sudden the dirt rose to the top and started running out. And that's exactly what you're saying. The more you invite and bring that happiness, that love, that joy into your life, that other stuff, yeah, it comes to the surface. And that's what a lot of people are experiencing right now. These feelings are coming to the surface that they haven't felt in a very long time, and it causes confusion for them.
Hmm.
You know, don't, I can't say don't be confused, because I get it. I understand it. We're all going through it. It's up because it's on its way out. It's leaving. So honor it, feel the emotions, don't get stuck on it. Keep the joy flowing in, keep the love flowing in. These things are on their way out. New patterns have been established.
Yes, really good point. And I remember a time when if someone had said, add more good stuff to your life
Mhm.
when I was perhaps depressed or anxious or being really boxed in by my anxiety. I can just imagine being like, like, what are you even talking about? And where would I start? And what does that mean? And, all of these things. And one of the things you'll hear people talk about, look at your shadows, right? Find out what you're not looking at in yourself, because oftentimes when you clean that little shadow off, you'll find the light inside is something that you're missing in your life and you're suffering from, right? For example, who are you jealous of?
Mm.
Ask yourself who you're jealous of. Like, get really honest with yourself. Who do I think, I don't like them because I think their life is better than mine, or I think they're doing something better than I am? There's a great indicator of something you want in your life.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be the person, right? It can just be like, well, I don't like them because I think they're, whatever it is. Okay. Well, maybe that's something you want in your life, because what is jealousy other than I want that and I'm telling myself I can't have it?
Yeah. I want what I don't. Yeah. They have what I want and I don't know how to
Yes.
get it. Hmm.
Right. But that's just like an invitation. Hopefully, what you've gotten out of this, series is that's an invitation when we're feeling bad things and telling ourselves not nice, not kind, and respectful things about ourselves. That's a great way of saying, okay, how can I explore and experiment and bring more of this thing that clearly I want into my life? And it will call that shadow out. Right? So the part of you that's like, "Oh gosh, how many times have I heard people say like, well, I don't need that. I don't need anything like that. What do you need that for?"
Hmm.
Right? Can't you just make do? And it's like, well, I mean, I suppose I could, but why would I?
Yeah.
I want to give myself the opportunity to have the things that I love,
Hmm.
right? And hang out with the people I love. I want to give myself that gift. Why would I deny myself that? Right? So if somebody says like it's wrong to want to have an hour every day where you could ride your bike at lunchtime, like that's just way too selfish, right? Then you've got a part of you that's hiding in the background, your shadow that you're not letting forward. You're not going to admit to anybody that secretly that's something that would light your heart up.
Hmm.
But once I say, why am I jealous of the person who's riding their bike for an hour every day at lunch and I think I can't, then I can invite that part of me forward and then we can start exploring and experimenting. Experimenting is a fun new word.
Explore a new trend.
Yeah, exactly. I've made one up. And we can start asking ourselves, or could I? I mean, how might that happen?
Hmm.
Could I stay an hour later at work so that I could have that hour in the middle of the day that would light me up? Would it reset my mind and my body so I could come back to work feeling more inspired, right? Do I need to change jobs because this job doesn't allow me to do that one thing in the middle of the day that would just make my world brighter?
Hmm. Yeah. It's a wonderful way for us to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because we do all this work, and then all of a sudden, you know some old patterns will come up. I have a client who gets very frustrated because things aren't happening fast enough. They're not happening fast enough. My body used to respond to these things faster. She's very much about working out and being healthy. And the interesting message that came up for her most recently was she was very much into biking, very competitive things where it was always a winner and a loser, and that's what lit her up. Well, she's done a lot of healing, and her body doesn't want to fight anymore. So it's showing up in injuries so that she can't do these very intense competitive things right now. She's started doing yoga and Pilates, and her body isn't responding as quickly as it once did. And, the message was, please be patient, give your body grace. She doesn't respond to the fight anymore.
Right.
She's looking for kindness and respect, gratitude and grace.
Yeah.
So the old things that worked in the past because of the growth may not work for you. That's why exploring and experimenting is so important. Not only have you shifted, the collective energy has shifted too.
Yes.
We're in unknown territory. So exploring and experimenting is really important.
Yeah, and you made a really good point about, the competing, the pushing, the striving. Like that's all zone 2 activity. And there's a time it's better than the helplessness and powerlessness that we feel of zone 1. It is definitely a step up, right? So we're in zone 2 and we're like, I'm going to prove that I can do this. That is a step up. The challenge with zone 2, if we don't continue into zone 3, is that we get in zone 2 and it becomes all about the competition. And ultimately, all of us are going to get to the point where, you might be the world's fastest marathoner, but in 10 years you won't be.
Right.
Right? So in that competitive realm, all of us are going to have to face the reality that we have our peaks, we have our climb, we have our peak, and then we have our descent, right? But if we move into zone 3, we can take what it is that we learned about ourselves and about the world in zone 2, and we can turn that into something that can light us up in this next stage of our lives. But if we get stuck looking in the rearview mirror and telling ourselves that there's something wrong with us because we can't do what we used to be able to do, we'll miss out on what's here now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
finding out what's amazing about being, I'm 50 something now, right? So I always call the somethings, right? And I'm sneaking up on 60 something at a good pace. So I like to be able to say, like, what's going to be great about being 50 something? And what am I going to discover being 60 something that I never imagined? Because I will discover new things because I will change. My body will change. And as a result, my mind will change and vice versa. Right? And new experiences will open up to me, new possibilities. I'll notice things and desire things I never thought about before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exciting.
Yeah.
Another quick key thing we talked about was um, really paying attention to why you're doing the things you're doing. If
Mhm.
your response is, well, yeah, I could do that, not, I want to do that, I choose to do that, you need to pause. There's so much power in the pause,
Mhm.
because the way that we've existed and survived in this world is to tolerate. Tolerate. I can tolerate this much pain. I can tolerate this much unhappiness. I can tolerate this. We're not being called to tolerate anymore. We're being called to thrive. We're being called to love. We're being called to choose joy and happiness. So take a look at why you're doing what you're doing. Are you doing it because you can tolerate it? Are you doing it because it's expected of you? Are you doing it out of obligation?
Right.
Those
Or
are
because you think you need to make yourself good enough.
exactly.
Yeah. What popped into my head as you were saying that was no pain, no gain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's such a great example. So if pushing yourself, and there have been times in my life when pushing myself to achieve things, physically, and mentally. But if pushing yourself feels good, acknowledge that. Right? This feels good because right now I have the energy, I have the interest, I have the focus. So I want to put all of myself into this and this feels good. Great, do it. And then give yourself permission to recognize that the day may come when you're like, yeah, not feeling it anymore. Right? And
Mm-hmm.
then ask yourself, is there a different way that I want to approach this where I have a different experience, right? That's still enjoyable? Or is this something that's just going to fall away, not be part of me anymore?
Yeah. Which, oddly enough, kind of rolls right into, you know, you're doing something, it doesn't, you're like, nah, okay, this ship has sailed. It's
Mhm.
time to move on. It doesn't mean that shift is always going to be easy.
Yeah.
And this takes me to, there's a certain amount of courage that you must have in order to make big changes. There's when you're trusting but don't have the whole plan. You don't
Which is
know
always. Mhm.
exactly, and that takes me to when I asked for a divorce. It was extremely hard. It was something that was, years in the making. And um, when that reality hit, and I finally had the courage to do it, it wasn't in the moment that I recognized it. It wasn't until well later, but it was like I almost had to I couldn't allow myself to be emotional. I couldn't allow myself to be connected. I had to make a cut in order for me to see it through.
Mhm.
I kept trusting that it was best for all of us involved. I didn't know for a fact. And it took, I mean, it's still playing out, but definitely within 2.5 to 3 years, I could finally breathe and say, yes, this was definitely best for everyone involved.
Mhm.
So it's not always easy to do what you're being guided to do. It's not always easy to shift out of something that you've been doing and you've loved,
Mhm.
and it has served you very well. And sometimes it yeah, I look back on that and I can understand how, the people it affected felt that I was being cold and dismissive, and
Yeah.
understand now that that's what I had to do to see it through.
Right. Right. We do energetically work things out and sever our connections with things that no longer fit us or like aren't going forward with us in the next chapter. And I don't think it's a conscious decision that we're making. It's just the energy shifts and we no longer feel connected to it because we're not.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of this is worked out on the subconscious. A lot of this works out in the superconscious. I don't really know because it's outside of the consciousness, right? Out of my immediate awareness. But absolutely, when you're being guided towards something, when you start getting the inkling, like, yeah, this isn't really for me. I don't really want to be doing this. Like whatever that thing is, this relationship isn't working or this job isn't working, like whatever the thing is. When you start getting the inkling, instead of just dismissing it and like, oh, I'll have another bottle of vodka or whatever the thing is that we kind of all learned to do. Like ask yourself, what is it that isn't working? Because sometimes what isn't working is just the way you're doing it. It's the way you're approaching it. It's the way the communication is happening or something. Maybe there's a way to improve the connection. Or maybe it's because it's truly time for you to move on to something else. And if you keep asking yourself and asking for more information, signs, like if I'm going to make a big decision, I want to know, I don't want it to be a whim that one day it was like, oh, no, I want to really explore. I want to look at it from a lot of different angles. I want time to process it and think about it. And I want the universe to give me a lot of evidence. And I ask, right? I'll say, okay, I'm going to need more. Like, I know what you're saying. I get it. My intuition right now is telling me to do this. I need more. I need more support. I need more information. I need more guidance because this is really hard and you'll get it.
Yeah. I mean, when I quit teaching, when I stopped teaching, I had 24 years in, and the people around me thought I was insane. Go one more year, go one more year. And I started thinking, I can tolerate one more year. And then I had this experience where a person of, you know, power made me a target. And that was the universe telling me, it's time for you to go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Really good point.
Mm-hmm.
When people start acting, I think, um, uncharacteristically,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're just like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That's often the universe helping you. Like you would stay in your comfort zone. This is the way we are. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just the way we are. We will, if we have a comfort zone and there's no ouchies anywhere in that comfort zone, we're going to stay,
Yep.
right? It's the way we are. And so, in order for us to grow, which it has been my experience, and certainly many people have written about this and shared these experiences, that we're here to grow, we're here to evolve, we're here to expand our awareness and to have
Mm-hmm.
more experiences. And, for whatever reasons, we're here. So beyond our conscious awareness again, right? So the comfort zone has to become uncomfortable in order to get us to run the heck out of it. Because we will tolerate a lot
Oh,
of suffering and a lot of struggling to stay in that comfort zone, right? I don't want to look out the window. I don't want to open the shade. I don't, I just want to stay here where it's safe. Things will happen. that will make it way beyond uncomfortable. And if we stay there and still don't allow ourselves to pop out, that is often when we become sick.
Absolutely. And that is where we have to wrap it up.
45-minute mark. No.
45-minute mark. Okay, folks, remember
Bye.
peacefulempowermentworks.org. If you want to support us, head over there, make a nice donation. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Like,
Thank you,
share,
Kris.
subscribe. Yeah.
Woo!
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Judy.